This is Tahira with Simply Schoolhouse, and today we are continuing our Homeschool High School series, and we're speaking with Jennifer, and she has 9 children, a wealth of wisdom and knowledge, and a strong foundation in biblical principles that has allowed her to be successful thus far. She's graduated 5, some are already done with college and doing life, and she's actively homeschooling 3 right now. Her children are doing everything from working at Answers in Genesis as a graphic designer, cybersecurity, animation, musical theater, and more to come with the ones who are still in school. So tune in because she goes over a lot of great information about life values, foundational skills that are necessary for homeschoolers, how to balance things, and also developing strong characters, great connections, and amazing relationships with your children. So tune in, watch this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. You will not be disappointed. So good morning. This is Tahira from Simply Schoolhouse, and I have Jennifer Duncan here this morning, and we're going to be talking about homeschooling high school. So we're continuing in our series. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good, good. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm grateful that you were able to carve out some time in your schedule and chat with us this morning.
Me too. I'm excited.
So we're talking about homeschooling high school, of course. But before we dive into that, you've been homeschooling a long time, I
hmm
know. You have a large family. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started? And when you first started homeschooling, was it even popular?
Okay, yeah, I have 9 children. Um, I grew up in Michigan, and when I was a college student, I was first exposed to homeschoolers and also large families, and I just liked what I saw, and so it was an idea put in my mind before I was even married and met my
Oh,
husband.
wow. So you always knew you wanted to homeschool.
I always wanted to. In fact, when I was doing I was an education major and I did some graduate work. I did an independent research on homeschooling. I was very passionate about it before I even had children. And I think it was mostly because I saw what I liked. I liked what I saw in the families
Yeah.
that I knew that were homeschooling. And then when I met my husband, he was like, makes sense to me. The things we liked about homeschooling, the reasons we wanted to homeschool, um, resonated with him too. I can talk about that a little bit, why we both wanted to homeschool.
Yeah, absolutely.
hmm So I like to say we had opposite experiences in the education system. I was an honors student and mostly all A's and played by the rules. Yet I
Hmm.
feel like I got out of high school almost knowing nothing. Like when I think about what my kids are learning now, even from elementary school,
Hmm.
I'm amazed. And I went to a prestigious university and
Wow.
graduated and got,
Okay.
most of my graduate degree. And I can't believe how little I actually knew. I just was in a factory of like just memorize facts and spit them
Hmm.
back out. And I played by the rules. And I remember I was assigned books to read, but I didn't have the reading comprehension to understand or the maturity to understand the concepts in these great
Right.
books of literature.
Analyzing it. Yeah.
Didn't have the background to be able to do that. So I think the opportunities were probably at my school, but I just was not I didn't it was partly the system, partly just not having the maturity to take advantage of those. My
Well, yeah, and everyone's learning the same thing. I mean, it's not like you had a tailored education in that sense.
Mhm.
Everyone's pretty much they have to spit back the same answers the way that the teacher wants them answered, and it's pretty much like just a factory. So,
Yeah, the teachers, give feedback on your compositions, but there's only so much they can do. The English teachers in schools have hundreds of students, so there's only so much you could do. And in math, if you fall behind in math, that's the same thing. There's
mm,
only, but math went okay for me. Anyway, so a disadvantage is because I was generally playing by the rules and getting good grades, I was not prepared to handle when I was challenged. And
Mhm.
the first time that came up was in high school AP physics. And I just kind of freaked out and I dropped it. I didn't really
Wow.
know how to handle that. And my teacher did urge me to stay in it and try, but I just kind of I wasn't prepared to like push through. On the
Hmm.
opposite side of the spectrum, my husband grew up in an inner city school in the Bronx, and he had, we think, some learning disabilities, a dyslexia that was never diagnosed, got held back, kept for extra reading classes, and was not able to participate in any of the things he was excelling at, like music or
Wow. Yeah.
computers,
Yeah.
just kind of just pushing him in the same old mold, which he needed extra reading classes for sure,
Hmm.
but never did really seem to help him. And he also felt like a failure because he wasn't able to learn the things that he was
That he had the
excelling,
strengths in.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
strengths. So from both ends of the spectrum, we felt we could, by individualizing our homeschool curriculum, we could meet the children either accelerate their education or slow it down, or, we could more
Every
tailor
need.
it to their interests and their skills. But that's not the main reason we decided to homeschool. That is just a huge benefit. The main reason we're Christians, and the main reason we want to homeschool and have continued to homeschool is because it is our way of discipling our children
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having
That's
them
good.
with us all day and not separating our Christianity from our academics, from our, segmenting our life like that. It's all integrated, and how we do our work is part of our faith, and how I respond to my kids when I'm impatient is part of my faith,
Yeah.
and how we learn history. We don't separate what's the Bible and what's real history. It's all integrated. Right now, we're learning about the Persians and the Greeks, and I like to, show them on a timeline what was happening in the Bible at the same time, and where do those cultures intersect. Oh, Esther, she lived in Persia. And so we get to not segment our lives. It's more real for us with our faith. So that's the
That's
main reason we started homeschooling, and the main reason when things get difficult that we continue, because the ability to do that is really beautiful for us. I'm not saying it's the only way, it's what we wanted to do. And the
good.
third reason that we wanted to homeschool, the academic individualization, the discipling, and just to promote strong family relationships, not to, with so many kids, they would have been separated in all different schools. Not to say you still couldn't have a close family, it's just what we decided to do to so we'd be together more and live life together more, work on getting along with each other and loving each other. So
That's
that's
awesome.
that's
That's
those
awesome.
are our reasons.
And you said
Mhm.
something very, very important. You said it helps you as well, learning how to be patient and learning how to do that. And, I've said that homeschooling does not start with your curriculum choices or even your why. It starts with the parents. The parents definitely have to, it's like sometimes it may hurt, like, ouch, oh, wow. But we have to take a good look at ourselves and our heart and our character because we're ultimately leading our children and we need to emulate and be able to deal with them in a manner that we want them to handle situations. So, yeah.
Yes, and I like to remind myself it's not just so we're a good example. That's the easier thing to say. That's true. But the more important thing is it's really, I'm a follower of Christ, so I'm responsible to obey him.
Yeah.
And that's my walk with him, to be obedient and to confess when I do something wrong. So there's a lot of apologizing that goes
Oh,
on in
yeah.
my home. As I say, like when my younger years, I was weaker and I had, I'm embarrassed to say I would be yelling at my kids. More now, I just struggle with irritation and maybe not saying things the kindest way. So I tell parents, get used to apologizing.
Yes.
It's what we need to do to live the Christian life and not become like Pharisees, to be fake. we don't want to give that example and we don't want to be that person.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when they do something, they'll know that, yeah, that's what I need to do, apologize and make it right. So yeah.
And my older
That's-
kids, I have five graduated from homeschool high school, and
Wow.
they will
I
say,
and I honestly I didn't know the exact number. I know the
okay,
ones that I see on a regular, but I didn't know the exact number. So,
okay.
hmm.
I'll give a little background, but I was
Yeah,
just
sure.
gonna say, my kids that are graduated, most of them will say that they're encouraged to see me growing as an adult. That encourages them in their walk, that
Well, that's
I'm
so
honest
wonderful.
about where I'm growing and when I make mistakes. So that encourages me to keep on. I don't
Hmm.
want to be standing in the way of my kids growing in the relationship with the Lord. I want to help them on the path. And by being fake and covering up my sin, that's not helping and it's not right. So I have nine children. My oldest is 27. She's a graphic designer. She works for
Awesome.
Answers in Genesis, a
Oh, that's so
ministry in
cool.
Kentucky, northern Kentucky. She gets to do lots of interesting things with them. My
Yeah, I
second
imagine.
is 25. He's married and gave us our first grandchild this year. And
Oh,
he is a
congratulations.
computer scientist. He does cybersecurity. So he's our math science guy. They both went to Cedarville University, which was a
Awesome.
great experience. My third is Elijah. He is 23. He graduated last May, almost a year ago, with a jazz studies degree. He's a drummer
Oh, awesome.
in performance for music. My fourth is in college right now. He's 21, Micah. He is studying animation. He's in his third year.
That's great.
You can look him up. He's got stuff on YouTube.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
cool.
My
Yeah,
fifth,
we'll put that in the description.
yeah, Micah Duncan. My fifth is Miranda. She's 20. She's also studying animation, but more 2D, whereas Micah's studying 3D. They're at the same school, Lipscomb University in Nashville.
Oh,
And my sixth is graduating this year, and she is going to study musical theater, which
wow.
she loves to tell a
Yeah.
story on stage. So we're excited to see what will happen with that. And
And she
then
does a great job. She does a really great job and has an amazing voice.
yeah, our daughters, for those of you who don't know, both of them are often considered for the same roles because
Yeah.
they have similar skill sets and they look similar. Um,
Hmm.
so, so thank you for saying that. My seventh is only 16, and I was just practicing for his driving test with him today. He's a sophomore, and we don't know what he's going to do yet. And
Hmm.
my eighth is Leah. She is 14, almost 15. She's a freshman in high school. And then my youngest is 12, and he is finishing seventh grade. So
That's great.
that's my tribe. So after this year,
Yeah.
I'll have three left homeschooling, but I have homeschooled a long time and graduated and seen them get into adult life. So I'm excited to talk about this topic today. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's, very, very wonderful that, you already have five outside of homeschool and that they're in their career. You have a grandbaby already. I mean, it's just great to see their growth. And
Mhm.
like you said, the feedback that you all are able to give each other, they're able to say, Mom, look, I've seen how much you've grown, and you can see how much they've grown, and it's all connected and working together.
And I'll say it's always felt too difficult. It's never felt easy. And it's been a walk of faith, and it's good to look back and see, yes, God was faithful. We like took the next step all the time, like, okay, we're doing it this year, and where God leads this year. It's always maybe my first few years, I felt I knew what I was doing, but mostly it's felt too difficult, and it's been a walk of faith, a lot of work. But I'm really thankful for all the way God's provided for my children.
It is a lot of work, and I just spoke with another mom, and we were saying, it's not all fluff and flowers, but it it's rewarding. It's
Hmm.
rewarding, and
Hmm.
not every day is the downward spiral of a roller coaster. There are so many high points. There's so many wins, and
Hmm.
you just named a bunch of them. You just
Tons.
named a bunch of them. So that's really great. Now, with nine children, how did you manage your schedule?
That
Um,
is a great
you know,
question.
how did
So,
you adjust your routine and accommodate
yes.
all of their different things, their different academic levels, their emotional, growth and all of that.
Well, if I may, I just want to preface this by saying there are a lot of different ways, because you'll have a varied audience. There's a lot of different ways to homeschool and to homeschool high school. And it's important not to try to do all of the above, what everyone's doing, but to figure out what is going to work for you and your family. What, if you're married, hopefully, you have someone in this journey with you. If you have parents living with you, like what's going to work for your household? I was thinking about
Yeah,
some families are going to be caring for an elderly parent. Some
that's
are
true.
both working. Some have a disabled child. Some have two kids. I have not. You got to look at what is God leading your family to do and what works for your family system. That is really important.
That's
So
true. That's very true. You
so don't
consider the
take what
dynamics.
worked for me as what anyone else should do. We worked out our unique system through the years, and I didn't know upfront how it would work. So we were kind of chugging along, and with one more babies coming, schooling, I generally combined subjects up to high school whenever I could. So we did history together. I lumped them together for science a lot of time, and by the time they got to middle school, I had this mentor that was a few years ahead of me, and what she did, I did basically to teach my kids how to read well and then teach them to learn independently. That's the
Yes.
big picture of how I manage so many kids. So I was not people that don't homeschool think that maybe you're standing in front of a whiteboard and giving lessons all day. That would be rarely the case. Mostly, I chose curriculum of which there are many choices that they could manage independently. Things that had the directions included. I didn't have to have a teacher's manual,
Yes, I love curricula like that.
and there are many.
Hmm.
um, that are written to the student and that they could do independently. And then some things they would check on their own, some things I would check, depend on the year, depend on the student, depends on the trustworthiness of the child or the maturity.
Yeah.
But you work that out. But you need some accountability built in if they're working independently. A lot of years, what I did is they could check their daily work, but I would check the tests. So I knew that there was at some point knowing, do they really have a handle on this,
Yeah.
their mastery of it. Um, but I've done it all sorts of ways, but you do need some accountability. So they would, when they got to middle school, generally veer off and start working independently. Often I would have pairs of kids doing the same subject. So if they were like this year, we have three kids doing the same science. I didn't get hung up about, well, generally physical science is for eighth graders. Well, this year I happen to have a seventh and a ninth and a 10th grader doing physical science because
Hmm.
that's what worked for us. And it doesn't really for our goals, it doesn't really matter what year they do biology.
Oh, of
Even
course
though
not.
we're so
Mhm.
used to high school, but you take ninth grade biology, 10th grade
Yeah.
chemistry, but that's just kind of arbitrary when their math is ready for that subject. It doesn't have to be done in that order unless your goals are different. Like if you have a goal, your child is going to take AP Bio and AP Chem before they graduate high school, then you definitely should be paying attention to when you introduce your sciences, for example, or you definitely want your kid to get through calculus by the end of high school, then you want to make sure you're on target for that. But we didn't have those goals.
Hmm.
We had different goals for our kids. And um, So that's generally how I did it. Then when they got to high school, they're doing some subjects independently, and I looked for outside sources to supplement.
Yeah.
I found that very valuable. In some states, not in mine, there are many different co-ops that are very affordable to use. I didn't have that, but we did have some resources to do some online classes, and friends taught classes online. So normally my high school, well, I would say always, my high schoolers have taken at least one class from someone else and sometimes more.
Hmm.
I found that very helpful for them to get feedback from someone else. It was helpful for me to not have to do everything, and it was very helpful for them to get some affirmation from somebody else and some feedback from somebody else and some accountability for someone else. So it worked for both of us to do it that way.
Those are great points. Great
Yeah, so
points.
that's the big picture of how we made the schedule work.
Mhm.
Also, we didn't intend for it to be this way, but what's worked out for our family is by mid-high school that my kids have generally seen the direction that they want to go in. So far, all six have been this way. And then we tailored their curriculum strongly in that area. So the first 2 years of high school were typical classes. By the last 2 years, they were doing minimal of what's required by our state and having more time for what I would call their major. So we kind of let them major in a subject in high school. For my son, that's computer scientist. He took more computer programming, more physics, more math. For my daughter, that was a graphic designer, more art. Certainly for my fourth and fifth, that were the animators, they were doing art most of the day and very
Yeah.
minimal what was required by law, math, and science. And for someone who took like all advanced math and science and APs, that took me a few kids to feel okay about that.
Mhm.
But now I've seen them become adults and realized what I see for the career choice they've chosen in their gifts. They have plenty of math and science for those things, and they can go back and learn more later if they want to. But what they
Absolutely.
needed was to really be able to delve into their areas of interest. Yeah.
Yeah, those are
So,
great strategies. And in New York, you're in New York, you're right. Though there are definitely different homeschooling laws. I think New York is one of the strictest
mhm,
with homeschooling laws. New Jersey is one of the loosest.
mhm. But
Yeah.
people should not be intimidated by New York. It's very doable. It's
Mhm,
not too difficult. It's
mhm,
not that restrictive. I mean, compared to New Jersey, yes, but it's stuff most people would want their kids to have in high school, the things they require.
mhm. And do you have to submit your scores or grades or portfolios?
Mm. We have to submit several different reports throughout the year, but now it's very easy for me to do. I don't know if most of your audience is interested in New York laws, but we have reports throughout the year, and then we have to do, starting fifth grade, standardized test every other year, and high school every year, standardized test.
Mhm,
So my kids, unlike most New Jersey students that are homeschooled, my kids are used to taking standardized tests. So by the time they're ready to take the SAT, which my kids have done for college, they're used to the format pretty much. So it hasn't been a big deal. It's no high stress thing. It's just, I said, that's just what the state requires. There's no stress on it.
yeah, that's good, and then they're ready for it, they're prepared. Yeah,
Mhm.
the as far as the state laws are concerned, it's pretty chunked, there's really loose,
Hmm.
moderate, and then really strict, so all of them fall into at least one of those categories.
But
Um,
our predecessors that fought for the laws we have, I'm very thankful for, because even in the strictest of states, it is very doable. It is
yeah,
not, people get intimidated by it, but it's really not that big of a deal. Yeah.
that's good to know, because we've always been I was born in New York, but
Hmm.
during my homeschooling years, it's all been in Jersey, so that's wonderful.
Hmm.
Can you describe a challenge or a moment of doubt that you encountered in your high schooling journey, and how you found the strength to push forward? And also, after that, you can share any impactful win that gave you the courage and the inspiration to keep going. And I know that the Father, God, our Heavenly Father, is definitely a huge part of keeping you going and pushing through. And like you said, you're going with faith. But just give us an example.
So many challenges. So the biggest ones that come to mind, I could kind of clump together, because it's happened a few times where I've run into, and I don't think it's that uncommon. I've run into um, clashes with some of my teenagers as they become more independent and want to, let's say, do things differently than I want them to be done.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
that's not uncommon.
and I have been tempted at times to find another schooling option for them because of how much tension that can lead to in the home and take a inordinate amount of my attention away from the rest of the children. And so my husband and I have considered that at times if another option might be better for some teenage boys specifically.
Hmm.
And we have not found a better option to meet our goals, which I listed at the beginning. So at that point, it's time to pray and dig into how God is going to provide the strength and wisdom for me to carry on. And He has been faithful to do that. And that's when it's been worth, for all three times that that's come up, it's been worth it to push through for the greater good of building a relationship with that child instead of an escape route that would have just avoided the
Yeah,
conflict.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's caused a lot of personal growth in me to examine my heart and my motives and what I really value. And am I conveying those things to this child, or do I just want easy compliance? So it's been, I think, definitely growth for me to push through those things, to be flexible, to do things a different way, to ask God for creativity and strength, to trust Him when I don't see answers. And I've seen Him be really faithful with that. Um, I have how I got through them. I hope that gives enough information.
Yeah,
I've looked to
yeah.
do
No,
things a different way. I've been open to not being stubborn with what's worked before, doing things a different way. Um,
yeah, and
and the
that's
story's not finished yet, so we'll see how the rest of my boys turn out, you know? Yeah.
well, that's real. I mean, that's real because all of our children have different character traits, and you know, I think, I mean, I've been there too. I've felt like, you know what, this year is a little bit not going the way I want to. You're gonna go to school,
Hmm.
and God just kept us, straight and steady. And you push through on those days, those
Yeah.
months, and sometimes even
Yeah.
those years.
I'm not
Have you
saying it's
seen?
never the answer for anybody, but it wasn't the answer for us.
Mhm.
And I think, oh, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, that's okay.
Maybe,
It'll come back to you.
yeah.
But did you said that you saw growth in yourself during those moments and those times where, you said you were going to stick with this. Did you see the same growth mirrored in your children at that moment or after, you kept going? And you said it's still playing out, but have you seen the same growth there?
Well, I can think about my older sons, and I would think that they did see growth and definitely growth in our relationship through sticking it out.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have good relationships with both of them now. I've seen growth with my next son in our relationship. Um, yeah, definitely, as I already said, definitely seen growth, taking the log out of my own eye. Um, and just in growth and trusting the Lord when no answers seem apparent.
And that's an extremely humble way of looking at it. And I just hearing you, it's the same pattern. You're looking at yourself, not your children first. You're always going back to what am I doing and how can I change and how can I facilitate things a little differently. And that's very powerful. That's
Well,
very
as I say to Hira, I think one reason I have so many children is because I'm a slow learner. So this is through a lot of years. I mean, in earlier years, I would be like, oh, they're not robots. What I wanted was to say, okay, here's what you guys do. And they would sit down and just do it. And everything would be neat and tidy. And they'd clean up after themselves and do all their chores. And we would just have this. I worked very hard with my systems, with my chore charts, with my
yeah,
schedules for
yeah.
school. I worked very, very hard in the early years. And I thought if I got everything just lined up just right, everything would run smoothly. But that's just not human beings. And I'd be like, oh, they're not robots. I would say to my husband just to kind of relieve stress. And they're humans and they have stuff going on. And so I think as you adjust into the high school years, you got to realize, think about how you felt, how old you felt when you were 16, 17, 18. Like
Mhm, mhm.
they think they're grown up and they have those feelings. They just don't have the experience or the maturity. And so you have to adjust your that's kind of a parenting issue, but it all kind of melds together. You have to adjust how you react to them. It's not just sort of under your thumb anymore of like, you just have to do your, like, there's a relationship you have to
Mhm.
foster in a different way as they go through the teen years that it's taken me a long time to learn, but I'm working on
Well,
it.
we all do. We all work on it. But yeah, they're all coming into their, their own selves, their independence, their talents, their skills, their growth, and yeah, becoming little adults, and it's a lot to guide. And yeah,
Hmm.
good. That's good. All different strategies. Um, They're different ones that work differently for each child, and I know all of your
Yes.
children are different. I'm sure they're all well, you said there's some similarities in the one situation, but they all have different personalities and, different ways of doing things, so yeah.
But what's similar about them all that I have found, they like to be respected.
Yeah.
They like to be shown love. They like to be given choice and not just dictated to. I'm speaking about my teens.
Mhm.
They like accountability, clear boundaries. They may not like the consequences, but they don't like shifting due dates generally. Like I would find myself so flexible, it would give mixed messages to them. That's why I
Yeah.
like having outside teachers for some subjects because I know they were sick. So I'm like, okay, you can turn it in a week later. It's very
Mhm.
easy. That's a weakness of mine. Clear boundaries without the drama. So if this is due, this is due. These are the consequences. Like we dealt with this recently. They have to be down for what we call Bible time at 8 o'clock, like our family devotions. I do that with the kids. My husband started work already, so he's not there, but they just were not coming.
Mm.
Be two this day, one this day, three this day. And I went to my husband. I'm like, maybe I should just give up. Like maybe I can't do this anymore. And he just, he said no. And he set a boundary and they had to be there at 8 o'clock or he's going to charge them $5 every time they're late. And
Great.
there was no screaming, there's no crying, there's
Yeah.
no drama. It just was a boundary set that, and it's great to go to whoever is homeschooling with you to help out with that because we get weary, the main homeschool parent. And he was just able to solve that problem that I've been having all year, just like that. And I should have gone earlier. So all the kids like the clear boundaries without the drama.
Yeah, the accountability. Accountability is important as adults and in
Hmm.
adulthood,
Hmm.
and that's something that if they learn early, it will really be beneficial. So,
Beneficial. Yep. So that's worth fighting for. It's hard, but it's worth fighting for finding how you can have accountability and boundaries um, that don't shift all the time, that doesn't involve emotional yelling and stuff. Just, give the
oh my,
grain.
it's exhausting to
Yeah.
just verbally repeat yourself over and
Yeah.
over and over. Do this, do that. Did you?
Why isn't this done? I mean, you have the household stuff and you have the school stuff. And so it's like, well, the house is messy. I told you to do that. Like that's just parenting issues. But then when you bring the school into it, it can get pretty exhausting. So it's good to take a step back and figure out how you're going to handle that.
And there's after school stuff,
And there's activities, and like our
activities.
kids
Yeah.
are both going into Tech Week, Tahira and I, and we always take that week off. We plan our spring break then because they're doing rehearsals for their musical every day.
Those are
But now
long
this year
days.
it's 2 weeks. So how are we
2 weeks,
going to handle that?
2 weeks.
And I like the flexibility of homeschooling, but as I tell their director, we do have to school sometime. It does have to be school. So you have to balance that all in. Oh, but to take a step back, I decided along the way that I was not, this is just with time management, I was not going to homeschool my kids and and I set a boundary that I was not going to homeschool my kids and that they would not have the time to get a full night's sleep. I refused to homeschool in that way that they'd be up late studying
Mm,
and they'd have to go on 4 hours of sleep. That
yeah.
if they get in that kind of jam, fine, but I'm not going to set them up that way.
Right,
So
right.
I really try and look at the whole life balance. They're also going to go to church every week. That's a value strong in our family. So no one in my family asks, are we going to church today? Are we going to Sunday school today? We go every week. No one ever asks. They serve at church and children's ministry and the worship team. So we also have set aside Sunday afternoon as our family day. So no one's doing homework during that time, you know? So
Yeah.
they don't have Sunday to kind of do their work. They have 6 days. We schedule it 5 days. They can do some on Saturday if they need to. But I try my best to, and they need rest
Yeah.
and they need good
Important.
nutrition. So I try and look at the whole family balance, the whole life balance, trying to set them up for adulthood, modeling that well, that all these things are important. Academics don't hold this much bigger than everything else value in God's mind. These are all important. Relationships are important. Family relationships are important.
Yeah.
Serving one another is important. Taking care of the house is important. So in our house, um, the academics are not our God.
Yeah. And
I just
these
read
are,
a book about a tiger moms. And this is a Chinese woman writing this. I'm not saying this. She says
mhm,
Chinese moms do it this way. They do it this way, the tiger mom mentality. And I was like, yeah, that was interesting. I read that right before this interview. If that's your goal to have these high achieving students, you have different goals. That can be
yeah.
fine for your family. It's just not how we have structured our family.
Mhm. Yeah. Having clear expectations, it sounds like what you're saying, giving your children clear expectations, boundaries, accountability,
Hmm.
and also setting them up for success through,
Hmm.
the proper rest, nutrition, sleep, in order to develop these great relationships, bonds, connections, and learn how these are all life skills they're going to need once they're done with school.
And what I
So,
have found they really need for their next step in life, as far as college or something else, my kids have all gone to college so far, but we haven't required that. Um, they need to be able to read well. So I do prioritize good literature and good literature classes where they're discussing ideas from a biblical worldview that I've put on a high priority. So they've had teachers that are Christians that discuss the literature, help them wrestle through ideas from a Christian worldview, because that's preparing them for life. And some good math skills. They don't have to be in calculus or pre-cal necessarily, but they need good basic math skills. If they have those two things and they can write decently, a coherent essay, then they will be
do
prepared for
anything.
college.
Yeah.
They will be prepared for college. They need the resume that the college requires. They may need good test scores, but not all colleges require the SAT. But you can learn a lot of things later. You don't have to be stressing your kids out to learn everything right now. You don't have to take all these things at the same time,
Yeah.
but you do want to build really good basic skills. Those are hard to make up later, I think.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, having a solid foundation, because
Hmm.
when you teach your children, you don't have to teach them anything. You don't have to teach them everything, but you do need to teach them how to learn.
Hmm.
So as long as they understand how they can go and find the information, how they can learn something on their own, how they can teach themselves, whether
Hmm.
it's in high school, college, or after, they're good. And you're right, those are great. Those foundational skills, the literature, the reading, the writing, being able to speak, those are all necessary in whatever field or career you go into. So,
And I think being tech savvy, most kids are anyway, but some parents really shield their kids from tech. I think being somewhat tech savvy gives them, they'll learn it anyway. They're born of this generation, but like knowing how to do a Zoom link, knowing how to do a spreadsheet, knowing how to go to one of these online platforms for classes. Colleges do all this stuff. They need to be familiar with the computer if they're not, I think, but they can
yeah,
learn.
I
Much
agree.
more important to learn how to read. That's much more important to be
Yeah.
able to read well. But my kids felt, I think, more prepared for college because they'd already taken an online class before and they know how to go to these portals and everything.
Yeah, Maria, she is just so intuitive with
Hmm.
technology. She has not had a formal computer class where Taylor did, the oldest one, but my middle one, I'm struggling with something with my phone. She's like, "Oh, mom, here, give it to me." Blah 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 blah. And I've never
Yeah,
taught her
yeah,
those skills. So yeah,
yeah. It's intuitive to them mostly. Yeah,
hmm.
yeah.
So you definitely went ahead and talked about how you're preparing for the next step. What would you say to some parents who may be a little bit doubtful or feeling overwhelmed or uncertain whether they would be able to do that as well and get their
Mm.
children. Because some parents by high school, they're saying, I think I'm going to put them in high school and stop homeschooling at that point. What would you say to that parent that either is already homeschooling their child or may just consider, you know what, I'd like to transition, but my child is close to the high school years. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed about it or a little doubtful that I would be able to prepare them properly. You've given great strategies. Do you have any motivation or encouragement that you would say?
Mm. I would say if you are called to it and you want to do it, it's very possible for almost anybody because there's so many even free resources out there. If you have some funds available, it's very easy to get very good classes online. There are so many platforms for really good classes that are it would be much cheaper than private school, which a lot of my friends chose to do high school private school.
Mhm.
You can get really good quality classes for less money, but you can also join a co-op and it would be nominal money. Um, so there's a lot of help out there. Um, you want to be in sync with your spouse though, so some people don't do it because of that. I can't say it's right for everybody, but
Mhm.
I would really examine your motivations for why you don't want to do it. If it's because of fear, I would kind of dig into that a little bit. Um, if you're a person of Christian faith, then I would dig into is that an area that God is calling you to trust him with? Is that a good motivation to send your kids into the public school? I think, I don't know how much of your audience is a Christian audience, Tahira.
Yeah, yeah, many are and some may not be, but
Okay.
even so, we share whatever,
Yeah.
we're going through. So not
So if
everyone may be believers, but doesn't mean that some of the advice we give could not
yeah,
be applicable.
yeah. So I think it's worth considering what are the factors besides the academic? What what kind of social pressures will your kids have to face
Mhm.
over 4 years in the high school? Are your eyes wide open about that? Have you prepared them for that? I'm not saying they can't. I just would be really wide open about the amount of pressure these kids are facing in the high school, the social the anxiety that is so high, the mental health issues that I keep hearing about are
Yeah.
very concerning. The confusing messages that they're being given about what's right and wrong. Does that line up with your family values?
Mhm.
The academic pressure is enormous in a lot of schools, some not.
Mhm.
I would just have your eyes wide open. Um, have you prepared your child to be able to thrive in that type of environment?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I would consider just looking for a mentor to talk through some of your concerns about homeschooling high school. I think a lot what I've seen in my circles is a lot of fear over getting into college. I just haven't seen that to be difficult at all for my kids to get into college. And
Yeah.
and I've told you how we homeschool. We're not even the most intensely academic. It is not that difficult to get into college. It's
Mhm.
very difficult to backpedal on family relationships that might suffer from them not being home or discipleship in their faith.
Yeah.
I think those are harder issues to deal with if you start to lose your kids to the culture.
Yeah. Those are so powerful. They're so powerful, the things that you said and the points you've made. Once those years are gone, you can't get them back for those relationships, character building, connection. But anything academic or anything, you can always learn. You could switch careers. You could
You
change
can
it.
always learn more math. I
Mhm.
tell people, if you're not I mean, worst case scenario, if you don't get through enough math, you could take a community college class when they graduate, and then suddenly they're ready for college. Like, it's not that hard to make up the
Yeah,
math.
yeah.
If you don't have the resources for a tutor or I mean, I could go on and on about the great curriculum that's been developed to help us through that scary subject of the math and the science. Again, in New
Hmm.
Jersey, there's a co-op on every corner you could get math help, science help with. So you had lots of help out there. So I would reach out and ask for, maybe someone that's done it for, your particular concerns and talk through that with
Hmm.
them. Of course, if you have family harmony on the decision, you don't want to be going against you want you and your spouse to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider.
And there are some families who, you know, they may be done with half of their college classes while they're still in high school. And,
Hmm.
that may be their focus. Maybe they're very, very STEM heavy, or,
Yeah.
they're going into a career that requires that. And that's okay too. It's whatever is good for your child. And the point that you're making, which is very good, is that if if that's not the path they're taking, then you have many, many options, and very varied options, and ways to expose them to many different things that they can do that's the right fit for them. And
Yeah.
even in high school, even though people may think, oh, yes, it's so academics are really strong in traditional school and not in homeschool. No, well, we already know that that's not the case. But even then, they're graduating, and I spoke with a woman who's we know that's an adjunct professor, and not all of these high schoolers that are coming out of high school are even prepared for the the entry level English. So it's just a farce to
True.
believe that,
True.
you know, oh, if they're homeschooled, they're not prepared, or they're not academically prepared.
That's why I
You-
think it's a lot of lack of knowledge and a lot of fear. That's why I would talk to a few home people that are homeschooling uh, high school, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions. And once you do it, it's not so scary and there's a lot of support. And like you said, I just want to emphasize that dual credit option, which is taking community college credits and getting a high school credit and a college credit at the same time. New Jersey discounts for high schoolers. New York does not. So it's pretty expensive for us to do that. But New Jersey has these great 2-year programs where you can do BOCES and get like an
yeah,
associate's degree by the time you're done with high school. That's another great option for people in New Jersey. So there's
yeah, and it's
there's too
safe.
many options to name here, but yeah, ask around.
And some of the fear that you mentioned, or some of the pressure that students may feel in high school, I think parents also feel a little bit of pressure, even if they start talking about the idea of homeschooling their children to some of their peers,
Mhm.
even though it has grown tremendously, the
Mhm.
amount of homeschoolers that are out there have grown tremendously. It's still looked at sometimes as, oh, that's a little odd. Oh, or oh, how are you able to do that? Or are you, they don't understand it all. So parents
Well,
themselves. Mhm.
I will say that even as strongly as I felt about homeschooling and how much I loved homeschooling, I have to confess that after I first got into college and was doing well, I felt a sense of relief. Like, oh, this worked. But now seeing so
Yeah.
many go through college, I see the things that are actually important, and it's the things I mentioned, really strong basic skills, um, and knowing how to work independently and not have things fed to you. Um, But yeah, I think I gained credibility from people that might have been concerned also when it saw it worked. So I have to remember those first years. Yeah, it could be you're taking a step that maybe no one has done in your family, and you might get criticism from the grandparents and things. So all the more reach out to the abundant support available.
Yeah, and your children are all doing great things, went to amazing schools, and their
Hmm.
careers sound lovely.
Hmm.
So, yes, you
And they're
do
just
have
really
the.
nice people. I like
Yeah.
them quite a bit.
That's wonderful. So, the last thing I'll ask is, if you were to give your if you were to give yourself advice as a new homeschooling parent again, what would you
Mm.
tell yourself?
Oh, this was a good, I saw this on your prep thing. This is a good question because I would talk, and I do, whenever I get a chance, I do talk
Okay.
to young homeschool moms and tell them these things. You got to take care of yourself. you got to set some boundaries for yourself. Your children will learn to read, they will eat dinner, but you could be up early in the morning till in the middle of the night working and feel like you've never done enough. You have got to set, after so many years, I set boundaries of I will only give homeschooling this many hours of my day, and then I would be done with homeschooling activities, whether it be checking, preparing, whatever. Like I had to set a boundary because I loved it so much also.
Mhm.
I would just be working myself
Oh,
to the
oh,
bone, and I was overtired, which led into being impatient with my kids. So I learned that who I was more important than what I do. It was more important for me to be kind, loving, patient than to be prepared with the lesson. I
that's
needed
good.
to have that
That's good.
rest reserve. So when something did spill or get broken or another argument between another set of kids, I had the reserve to respond. And
Yes.
I did not have that in the early years because I was so busy homeschooling. I
Right.
wasn't taking care of myself because I'm valuable to God. That's important in and of itself. But so I have the ability to love my children the way God wants me to. So I would take care of the homeschooling mom so that you are the person you want to be. And it
That,
will be enough schooling. You don't have to worry. It will be enough. And
yeah,
to
yeah.
teach them to learn independently so you're not necessary all the time.
Oh, those are two such good, valuable points.
Yeah.
Very, very valuable points. Absolutely. Teach them to be able to learn and learn independently and take care of yourself. Because if we
Yeah.
don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of them.
Hmm.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time,
My
Jennifer.
pleasure. This was so fun to
Yeah.
reflect on all of this. Thank
I
you for
love
asking me.
that. I loved all of your answers and, definitely the insight into how to homeschool with a large family and do that in the high school years and just be successful all the way through the college years and now life. Your children are doing life.
Yeah. And it was never neat and tidy, but I
Mhm.
have no regrets.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for asking me. Have a great day.